I'm Brianna, and you're watching Untitled Chapter.
You gotta get that Dante's boxing.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Finally, I get plugged.
What up?
What's going on, Tim?
Motherfuckers.
Hey, let me hear you say something dope, man. So this Bam Bam, you watching Dante's Boxing Nation or Bam Bam
I'm
Reels?
gonna do the one with a girl walking there. Like, this is the Untitled Boxing. You watching Boxing Nation.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So HBO's Jim Lampley, he finally breaks his silence and gives his thoughts on HBO dropping boxing from their network. This is basically what he had to say. Quote, HBO's identity is to be number one, and that talent pool tectonically shifted against us over the past few years. Costs of becoming dominant, again, not worth paying for what research says about viewer impact. HBO identity is to be number one in all we do. If I were CEO, I probably would have made same call. End quote. You know, guys, once again, this is big news. This is big news, and even though it was reported last week, it's still big news. We're not going to forget 2018, the year that HBO pulled the plug on boxing. Now, as you guys heard, Jim Lampley, he admitted that he probably would have did the same thing. He admitted that HBO was no longer number one. It's funny because you had decafs that were still trying to argue that HBO was still the biggest network in the sport of boxing, no matter how bad the numbers started to look. I mean, we all knew that it was coming, but I didn't expect it to be this soon. I expected HBO to try to hang in there, try to stay above water, and continue to put on these undercard fights and promoting them like they were main event type fights. But HBO wasn't having that, because HBO, they realized they could be making a lot more money, getting a whole lot more views if they replace these boxing cards with some of their bigger type of attractions, like some of their biggest pilots and documentaries and series. But once again, if HBO would have just went with the times, instead of trying to be stuck in the 1940s, hell-bent on neglecting talents like Andre Ward, Floyd Mayweather, or Terrence Crawford, and instead doing whatever it took to find the next white hope or the next non-black hope, that backfired on them. Speaking of that, the reason why I mentioned Terrence Crawford's name is because coincidentally, when Terrence Crawford fought Victor Postal, HBO didn't want to pay for the programming. That's why that fight was put on pay-per-view. And that actually pissed off Bob Arum. That's what made Bob Arum realize he's going to have to jump ship. And that's exactly what he did. Because we all know that that fight, it should have been on regular HBO. But Bob Arum was forced to pay out of his own pocket to put the fight on HBO's pay-per-view. But when it came to Sergey Kovalev fighting against Alida Alvarez, HBO, they paid for that fight, and they didn't put that on pay-per-view. HBO was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. It was do or die, just to find that next white hope to replace the Floyd Mayweathers of the world. And that didn't work. So now HBO is out of business, and Jim Lampley is out of a job starting 2019. I'm sure if he really wants to, he'll work for some other network. But once again, he won't be working for HBO anymore. I'll close out with saying this. You know, it's nothing wrong with promoting Gennady Golovkin like he's the next big thing, or promoting Sergey Kovalev like he's the next big thing. But if you're going to promote them, why don't you promote the fighters on the coincidental list the exact same way? Treat every talent equal. And if HBO would have done this, they would have still been on top today in the boxing world. I'll give you a great example of what equality looks like. Gennady Golovkin, is sponsored by Jordan, Michael Jordan, right? So that means Michael Jordan, he endorsed Gennady Golovkin. But guess what? Michael Jordan also endorsed Roy Jones Jr. and Andre Ward. You see, that's what Michael Jordan did. But when it came to American companies like Apple, American companies like Foot Locker, endorsing foreigners like Manny Pacquiao and Gennady Golovkin, but not endorsing Americans, their own countrymen like Deontay Wilder, like Errol Spence, like Terrence Crawford, like Andre Ward, etc., etc., etc. You see, in Mexico, you have Mexican fighters that have commercials in their own countries, right? Canelo Alvarez and many other fighters, you see them in commercials in their own country. You see Manny Pacquiao in tons of commercials in the Philippines. But only in America do they not put Americans in the commercials, but they put foreigners in the commercials to replace the Americans. You see how the double standards work? And this is the exact approach that HBO tried to use in HBO boxing, and it backfired on them. Because when it comes to boxing, you could promote the hell out of your favorite fighters. You could try to make as many promotional commercials as you want. But no matter how much money you invest on your favorite fighter on that hope list, you cannot make him a better fighter. You can't make him a better fighter. And that's what HBO didn't understand. That's what Jim Lampley and Larry Merchant didn't understand. And it cost them dearly. You know, Terrence Crawford, who signed to Top Rank, Bob Arum, he re-signed with them when he could have jumped on that PBC Al Heyman train. He could have been a free agent like Mikey Garcia and just started fighting or working with Al Heyman. But instead, he re-signed with Bob Arum. Now, even though I think it would have been a better idea for Terrence Crawford to remain a free agent and start working with Al Heyman and fighting on the PBC series, he stayed with Bob Arum. And the main reason he stayed with Bob Arum is because of loyalty. Clearly, he feels that he gets the respect he deserves from Bob Arum. I remember there was a time when Jay-Z's promotional company, they were trying to recruit a lot of fighters from PBC. They were trying to recruit fighters like Adrian Broner and many other fighters, throwing all type of dollar signs in their face. And Broner and the rest, they stayed loyal to Al Heyman. My point is, it's obvious Adrian Broner, he liked the way he was treated over there with Al Heyman. So no type of money could pull him away from working with Al Heyman. And if HBO would have showed this exact same loyalty to their biggest cash cow that was helping them generate all the crazy dollars they were making with Floyd Mayweather, this would have never happened. If they would have showed him just the respect he deserved, they didn't have to go out of their way. They didn't have to lie and give him extra praise. All they had to do was tell the truth and give him the credit he deserves. But they didn't do that, and now they're out of business. And Floyd Mayweather is still generating ridiculous revenue in the sport of boxing. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.